So you guys finally released the sequel to this movie after like 20 fucking years. I was 6 when that first one dropped. What's going on, everybody? It's the Granddad of Granddad Woolly, and you are here again for another edition of Woolly Reviews Film Data. We got a movie review today, and we're going to be talking about the long-awaited sequel to the 20-year comedy classic. It's finally here. Thank God all that waiting is over. We're talking about Dumb and Dumber 2, but not the number 2, like T-O, which doesn't make any damn sense at all. The fuck? Now, Dumb and Dumber 2 brings back the original characters played by Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, Lloyd Christmas, and Harry Dunn. And for those who haven't seen the 1994 original Dumb and Dumber, they're two best friends who were complete idiots, and they got into this crazy adventure because they were trying to return a briefcase that was supposedly forgotten by this girl that one of them fell in love with after 10 minutes of meeting them. Some stupid shit, but the movie is hilarious. So now, fast forward 20 years later, and they finally brought back their roles in this official sequel. Now I have to say something before I get into this movie. Back in 2003, they made this prequel called Dumb and Dumber, which is supposed to be like when they met each other. And honestly, that movie was an abomination, and that shit was terrible, and it should never be spoken of again. And I'm just going to say it right now, officially, now that a sequel's out, we can put Dumb and Dumber to rest, because that movie should have never been made, should never been created, and should never be speaking about ever again from this day forward. So all I have to say is RIP to Dumb and Dumber. You will not be missed at all. Alright, now back to this movie. Now, Dumb and Dumber 2 starts off 20 years after where the last movie ended. You see Lloyd Christmas, or Jim Carrey's character, he's been in a mental hospital for over 20 years because apparently he's been so devastated by the denial and rejection of the girl that he was in love with that he went crazy, and apparently he's been sitting in this mental hospital for over 20 years. Now, the other character, Harry, has been visiting him every week for all those 20 years, and, you know, just to be a good friend. And it turns out that when Harry tells him that he can't come visit him anymore, that Lloyd actually comes to and tells him it was a big joke for 20 years and he'd been playing a prank on him for 20 years. So that's where the movie starts out, and they end up, you know, traveling back to their original house. And actually, the cool part about it is they use the exact same set and scene. The same apartment from 20 years ago. You actually see the blind kid from the first one who was a little kid. He's grown up, and he's got all the birds and stuff like that. They actually brought back all the original elements from the first movie and just fast forward like it was 20 years past, and it looks so authentic and real, which is a real good thing and cool thing I like about the movie. So the setting of the movie is pretty much this. Harry tells Lloyd that he needs a kidney transplant and he needs to find a blood donor. So he ends up going to visit his parents, and his parents, you know, end up, you know, telling him that Harry's actually adopted and he's not his real blood parents, which, you know, if you see the parents, you'll obviously see that, but apparently Harry, being dumbass, he doesn't know that. So he ends up getting some old mail, and he finds out that he has a kid. So now they figure out to come up with the plan to find and track down the kid so they can actually be able to get the kidney out of Harry's kid, so they can be able to save Harry's life. So they first go to try to track down the mother of Harry's child, thinking that's where the kid is. So they go and find her, and it turns out that she put the kid up for adoption as well. But she did, you know, retain some information, and it finds out that Harry has a daughter. Now they show a picture of Harry's daughter, and Lloyd, Jim Carrey's character, sees the picture, and he ends up instantly falling in love like he did the last movie with the other girl, Mary Samsonite. So now, you know, what's turned out to be, you know, they won't be able to find her once, you know, they see that who this person is, especially when Lloyd sees it. He's adamant in trying to find this, trying to find Harry's daughter so they can be able to get the transplant. But in truth, he just wants to find her because he fell in love with her. So that's pretty much the setting in the movie. They just go on this cross-country adventure trying to track down Harry's daughter. And in between, they end up getting to all these crazy situations just like in the first movie. And the thing about this movie is, one, it's funny as hell. Like, from straight through, from the beginning to the end, shit's hilarious. Like, they really did a good job. I think with the 20-year gap, they really played off on that, because the thing about these characters that Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels play is they did not miss a beat. It's like they just took the characters and they actually put them 20 years later, and they're the same mental mind state. They're just 20 years older, but it's like they haven't changed at all. And like, if you watch the first movie And then this movie, you will see that clearly. And another thing I like about this movie is that they actually brought back a lot of the legendary like catchphrases and things about the characters that they did in the first movie that made them so lovable to watch. And they brought back soundtracks and things like that. Like the creators of this movie, the directors, the Farrelly brothers, they really did a good job, like really paying attention to, you know, the best parts of Dumb and Dumber and bringing them over to this sequel with a 20-year spin on it, and then adding new material that made it even better. Like honestly, this movie is right on level with the first Dumb and Dumber. I mean, of course, the first Dumb and Dumber has its own classic status, but this one here, when you watch it, for some reason, even though it's like such a far apart movie, it's like you can enjoy. I enjoyed this movie just as much as the first Dumb and Dumber. It's kind of like, it's like straight up level to me personally, because it's like they had the right amount of funny. The characters did the exact same, you know, things that they would do, you know, in the first one, but they just did it in a different setting, in a different time period. But the characters just nailed their parts, all of them. And then the writing on here is just great. It's superb. It's a Dumb and Dumber. It is worthy of saying this is Dumb and Dumber 2. This is sequel worthy. They didn't, you know, overdo it, and they didn't underdo it. So they hit it just right on the head. And I think that's with, you know, being so long in the gap, they really took their time and they really wanted to really make the right script. And I really think they did. And I think that's the reason why, you know, it has been so long since the first one, because you can't just go and rush into a sequel. Now, 20 years is not rushing at all completely, but I think if it takes that long to make a movie or a sequel this up to par with the original, then it's well worth the wait. I honestly have nothing bad to say about this movie. I was skeptical going into it, thinking, okay, of course you're going to compare it to the original, and I hope that they at least make something half as decent. But I was pleasantly surprised watching this movie, because it was just like the first few minutes in, once you really get into the movie, it's like hitting, it was like they hit pause on the first movie and then they just hit play and continued it. And it's like the same thing. You get the same feeling watching it, everything like that. Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, they really did their thing. They brought back their characters, and they brought them back at 100% dedication, and you can see it. And they didn't pull back. They didn't pull punches. The jokes on here are great. They're hilarious. One of the funniest movies that I've seen this year is Dumb and Dumber 2, and I can't say anything else but go see this movie, especially if you've seen the original. You have to see Dumb and Dumber 2. Like, this is the sequel that we have been waiting for, and it lives up to it 110%. Me, I love this movie. I mean, there's no part of this movie that I was just like, okay, I don't like this part, or this part sucks, or this movie's getting dull. It kept my attention the whole time, and they did a great job. So my final verdict, I'm not saying Dumb and Dumber 2 is one of the funniest movies to drop this year, and it more than lives up to the original. All I'm saying is that it took them 20 years to make a movie that I say is not only on par, but just as good as the original, and you will enjoy this from start to finish. The jokes hit on 100. They are hilarious. It's great that they brought back the original characters, unlike that prequel where they used some other people who we don't even know and it was whack. They finally brought us an official sequel. They used the best references from the first one. They gave us some great new material. And the Farrelly brothers, they did it. They redeemed themselves from that prequel that they made. And this is what we were waiting for. And 20 years was well worth the wait for a movie like this. So all I have to say is that Dumb and Dumber 2 is 100% Granddad approved. Go see it. It just came out today. I highly recommend it. I would go see it again. I would go pay and see it again. It is definitely worth the $11.50 popcorn and a drink. So go check it out. You will laugh your ass off, especially if you love Dumb and Dumber 1. Dumb and Dumber 2 is up your alley, definitely, all right? So go see it right now. Dumb and Dumber 2, Granddad approved. Flip it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and drop a comment. Tell me what you think of Dumb and Dumber 2 if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it yet, like I said, it just dropped today. Go to the movies, check it out, and come back and let me know the feedback. Previous video is on the side, as well as my music video. Go and check those out, show them some love. And as always, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, Instagram. Links in the description below. And hit that subscribe button. Button on the screen. Button below. It's Woolly Reviews, 2 times a week. That's what we do, and we're going to keep on doing it, all right? So until next time, I take my leave. Granddad, Dumb and Dumber 2, I'm out of here.